Aston Martin had a fantastic weekend in Hungary, and we were discussing just before recording this podcast if it was a blip or if it's just kind of like maybe they're actually finally here. What do you think?
Well, I think it's a bit of a it's a bit both. I think they definitely do have tracks that suit them better than others. I think we see this big jump from, Fernando was scoring pretty consistently in Spain, in Canada, and then up to Spa, where Aston Martin had just a god awful weekend, qualifying right at the back, making very little in terms of improvements during the race. And then you go to Hungary, a couple like straight away, and suddenly they're both in Q3. They're scoring big points, and you kind of forget that they had such a horrible time in Spites. As a team overall, I still think they are. It's so track dependent. It's almost they're just lurching from weekend to weekend and just praying that they get a decent result. It doesn't seem that there's that much vision, especially for this season. And fair enough, there's a lot coming and changing next year. There's no reason for Aston Martin to be throwing any eggs into this season apart from a prize money to keep the team somewhat afloat, and b it's good exposure if they do well. It's not the end of the world if they don't, because let's face it, you get more wind tunnel time. It's not the end of the world if you start dropping down the table. But that saying, we're coming to another track that is, somewhat similar to Hungary. It's a tight track, not a lot of high speed, which seems to be a problem for Aston Martin, and they could have another good race. Genuinely, it does sometimes just feel it's whatever Lance and Fernando are feeling that weekend is how they're going to do. If Fernando can be bothered, he tends to do pretty well. If Stroll can keep it at the wall, most of the times gets the odd point here. Both drivers are on equal 26 points. Yeah, it's this is what else you really can say from Aston Martin. They're not exactly a team that inspires much confidence, especially when it comes to the driver in the 18 car.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly something I think to be said as well for the fact that neither Fernando nor Lance really knew where the extra bit of performance came from in Hungary, and they brought a new front wing to the circuit. Maybe that's what it was, or maybe they just, as you say, showed up and actually cared. And I think we've seen a bit more recently. Lance Stroll seems to maybe have been told, "You're gonna have to start doing something, otherwise you're not gonna be able to keep your seat." Because I think that's kind of definitely one element of Stroll's ambivalence towards good results, I guess you could phrase it.